Rebranding Motherhood is a whole team of mothers, of wives, of women who are passionate about the larger conversations surrounding motherhood and marriage and all of the peripheral issues that go into rebranding this enterprise for good. One of those women, our creative strategist, is Baily Teague, who I actually am going to be sitting down with on air today. We are going to take the group chat live. We are going to take our comms brief meetings live because this has been a recurring conversation for us leading up to Father's Day, wanting to talk about the men in our lives who became the fathers of our children and who started off as people we didn't know, which is kind of freaky to think about, right? But these are the men who became our husbands, who became the fathers of our children, but they have their own origin stories. These men who walked into chapters of our lives, and we decided to build the whole rest of our stories together. So sit down with me as we come out from behind the camera with our creative strategist, Baily Teague, and we have this on air conversation about the man who became her husband before he was the father of her children in this special prelude to Father's Day. Thank you. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
I know a lot of this stuff about you, but our audience does not. So I figured we could start with our origin stories, not our villain origin stories, our marriage origin stories. So, how did
Sure.
you and your husband meet?
We met in high school. We actually, funny enough, probably met somewhere around 6th or 7th grade, but didn't know it. His sister was on my soccer team. And then we actually officially started, becoming friends and getting to know each other when I was a sophomore in high school. We were going to the same church youth group and got to know each other there a bit. And then from there, just kind of started hanging out with the friend group and just having a lot of fun, just being silly high schoolers.
Did you guys go to college together?
We did. Yes, but there is a lot of sordid history there that I'd love to share. Let's open the tea box. Is that what they say?
Pandora's box, tea box, eat a lot of
Spill the
boxes. You keep things in
tea.
a lot of boxes.
Yeah, yeah. There's just boxes, but let's open
Gossip,
it.
tea. Sorry, I'm
Tea.
real behind. Real
Yeah.
behind. I call myself a millenna boomer.
Okay. Sure.
So that's about how hip I am. So
Yeah.
open the tea box,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
spill
I
the
don't know.
tea.
I don't know. Let's spill
We'll
the
get
tea.
there.
Let's get right into it. Let's dig in. So, yes, we were friends in high school. We hung out all the time. I like totally saw it as a friendship for a very long time, high school. There's only 4 years, so it couldn't have been really that long. And we met 2 years into it. So it was more like, maybe 6 months into our friendship that basically Jordan's family, some of his family lives up in Minnesota. We were in Texas at the time, and he went up to Minnesota and we were talking on the phone every night. And I just was like, "Oh, I miss you. We miss each other. We were hanging out all the time." Silly old me, wasn't thinking anything too seriously. Meanwhile, Jordan was very serious about wanting to come back to Texas to be back near me and go to the same school as me. We started dating. It was exciting. It was just like, why not? You're like my best friend. Number one, wouldn't recommend. High school dating just isn't like, I don't know. It's just why, you know? Our youth pastor at the time, when he's a year older than me, so he was graduating high school, looking to go to college, and our high school pastor said, "Hey, you need to be really serious about dating Bailey, and you need to either be willing to marry her or you need to break up with her." Now, my husband is a very literal guy. It's one thing I actually love about him is that he takes things at their word, but he came and broke up with me immediately. And so, as a senior in high school, him having just graduated high school, that was devastating. We had just been dating a year. Um, it was a whole big deal that we had our year anniversary, and then he just comes and breaks up with me, and I'm devastated. He was my only like real high school boyfriend.
Did you see this coming?
No, I don't think he
Mm.
saw it coming. He literally just had the conversation and was like, "Okay, well, I have to go do this because that's what he said to do." And he was like very newly taking his faith seriously at the time. He had gone to church all of his life. His family are a great Christian family, but he was kind of just like, I'll be serious about my faith later. But whenever we started dating and being in, later in his high school years, he started to really take his faith seriously. And so because of that, he really started to take words from his elders, especially like someone so wise as our youth pastor, with like a lot of like heavy weight. He came and broke up with me. It was very sad. There was no real reason. He ended up going off to college. He went to Texas A&M, and I ended up going to college a year later because, like I said, I'm a year younger, and I also ended up going to Texas A&M after a lot of questioning it because I didn't want people to think I was following him, and all of the, again, high schoolisms that you just don't, things you don't care about now, but you did back then. And so we went to college together, but we were broken up for 3 years. And in the beginning of our breakup, we talked some pretty unhealthy, just kind of keeping tabs on each other, kind of thing. And then sort of started to lessen that and eventually just kind of stop talking in general. Until one day we literally ran into each other, meet cute, in the stairwell of the liberal arts building at Texas A&M University. So that kind of was a shocker for us both. I was with one of my guy friends, but Jordan thought that that was the new love of my life. And funny because we didn't really say anything to each other. We just kind of like were like deer in headlights, walked away. I'm sweating, but no one needs to know that. The Texas A&M is a military school. We have a big, huge core there. It's rooted in military. And so there are also always like little pop-ups outside of, different buildings, Army recruitment, Marines recruitment, whatever. Jordan left the liberal arts building. There was an Army recruiter right outside of the building. He walked up to it, took a flyer and said, "You'll be seeing me soon," because Jordan had decided in that moment, she's already moved on. I need to just go and serve my country and just forget about it all. So, as you can also hear, Jordan has a little flair for the dramatics, which I love. We call him the thespian of the family. But fast forward through it all, we ended up getting back together. There was a lot of hurt that had happened, over the breakup and a lot of questions that were never answered.
It's a reconnection there that
Yeah.
happened.
Yes, yes, yes. So, that night, probably maybe within the week, he texted me and said, "Hey, it was good to see you. I would love to meet up and get some closure." I'm like, "This would be great." Like, I've held on for too long. Me and him never dated anyone else during the 3 years. I was always hopeful that we might get back together, and I was finally at a place where I was like, "You know what? I think I'm ready to let go." So when he texted me and said, "I'm ready," I was thinking, this would be really great. Like, I'm going into my now sophomore year of college, and I need to move on with my life, you know? So we met up and he confessed his love. So there was no closure because then it, got very emotional in a positive way. We've been holding all this stuff in, and there was a lot there. You were my first love. Once he said that, it was like, I want to be with you too, but like, why the 3 years then? Is kind of what it felt like in
Mhm.
some ways. We were very immature believers when we were first dating. Jordan had just come like really into his faith. I came from a background where I was the one sending myself to church every Sunday and every Wednesday. I was the one who was committed to going. My family wasn't. My parents weren't at the time. They had been hurt by the church, and so because of that, it was just on me, and I just like to do it. And so I was finding my own way. He was finding his own way, but we were really immature. And of course, the breakup happened, and that was hard. But also at the same time, my parents got a divorce when I was a senior, like my senior year of high school. They told us that they were separating, and then my freshman year of college got divorced. And so there was just a lot there for me to work through, a lot of grief, and I was really young to be having to work through all of it at the same time by myself. And so praise God that I really leaned into him and I leaned into church and the Bible and finding community that supported me in my healing. And at the same time, Jordan grew leaps and bounds in his faith. A&M has a very robust Christian community, and foundation. So there was a ministry he was involved in that like just helped him grow so much and amazing people surrounding him. So when we got back together, of course there was a lot of hurt, but we had seen so much growth that made so much sense, and we could see the night and day difference in ourselves that we were different people. We're literally I was 20, he was 21, and so think about that from, like, 17 and 18, those years are foundational, like, I mean, you just grow so much.
I was supposed to meet my husband when I was 19, and he's 3 years older than me. He was renting one apartment with a buddy, and then a couple of his other high school friends were renting down the hall, so they all kind of it was basically like they just took over that corner of the hallway. And so when I was 19 years old, I walked into that apartment and I was supposed to meet him. Not the right time. If I didn't believe in guardian angels before, something was putting some sort of stopper over that
Right.
encounter. Not the right time. And like I said, he's 3 years older than me. So he had just graduated college and I was still in college. And he was in the back room and he just simply never came out and we never met. Fast forward 4 years, I walk into that exact same apartment and he walks out the back and we meet. And
Okay.
and it was just the right time, and I hate to say the right time as if it's something so ambiguous and this is all attributed to time as we understand it. Like you're mentioning, there is a capacity we have for walking out our faith given where we are at in our life at that given time. And then you can widen the lens a bit and look at what sort of counsel we had available to us, how we could even conceive of what was being preached to us or taught to us, or what we could even pick up on. And, we always, now that we're parents, make jokes about underdeveloped frontal lobes, that could be part of this, right?
Totally.
And so your perceptions are different. The things you are willing to, the things that weigh more, perhaps later in your walk, and should start to orient your priorities to ready you for the relationship as it needs to mature towards marriage. And so I
Totally.
think when Adam and I did actually eventually meet, I was 23, he was 26. It was, when I say the right time, I mean, I was of the right spiritual capacity to
Sure.
handle a relationship that could go where it needed to go. So
Yeah.
my question for you is, looking back on that time, how do you feel about the pastor that, you can love people and not like how they counseled you back then, but I'm
Yeah.
wondering how you felt about that advisement at the time, if you thought that was truly applicable or that it was meddling in the wrong direction?
Sure. Well, I'm smiling and slightly laughing because that pastor ended up marrying us. So I clearly wasn't that mad about it.
Right.
But I think it was sound advice because I think he knew Jordan. He had been his youth pastor for years and years and years. He knew probably to an extent how Jordan would respond and if that would show his health, his spiritual health, his spiritual maturity. To some degree, I'm not saying that like he went in thinking he was going to tell him that and that Jordan was going to make that decision by any means. But I disagree now that I'm, probably close to the age he was when he told my husband at the time that. Do I think that what he said was wrong? No, because I agree. Like, hey, if you're going to be dating someone at 18 and you're going off to college and she's still going to be in high school, you really need to take this relationship seriously and have a marriage in mind and have that as your goal or break up if you're just dating her for what's and giggles. That's what he meant. Again, Jordan was that just took it very literally and said, "Well, I'm not going to go marry her next week, so I should probably break up with her." I think it probably could have been a deeper, conversation, and it was when we got back together the second time. We're bringing it full circle
Mhm.
because when he came back into my life and, kind of just expressed, "Hey, I still, care very deeply about you and want to be the only person that ever gets to care deeply about you and want to be with you and take care of you for the rest of your life." I was like taken aback because I'm like, whoa, like
Right.
you still think this 3 years later. But he made it very clear because he wanted me to know that his intent was to marry me if we were to get together. He wasn't just
Mhm.
gonna pull me along and string me along and just date me because he couldn't find another girl in college or something. It took us about, I'd say, 3 months to kind of, like, really it was there were a lot of long night conversations after exams and after
Mhm.
football games and, that we would go and talk at a park, and just hash out, "Why did you do this? Like, help me understand this. Help me know how this isn't gonna happen again." While also, at the same time, "Hey, this happened to me over the last 3 years," and, "Hey, this was a big thing that happened to me," and, like, trying to get to know each other and our whole
Right.
lives again on top of it, before we really decided, "Okay, we're gonna date." And, that was, like, September is when we kind of rekindled, and around December, like, around Christmas time is when we dated again, and then we were married by the next January, so we knew pretty quickly, "Hey, if we're gonna do this thing, we're gonna do this thing." I Jordan had graduated in December, we got married January 2nd, and I had one last semester of college, and it was a whirlwind.
I'm thinking about those early character signs that are major indicators that this relationship is becoming more than viable for especially for marriage. And when you're talking about those late night talks going to the parks, I actually found those myself to be formative. So something we did early in dating was after every date night, we would actually end the night praying together and then having long talks. And as a cradle Catholic, praying out loud was just really difficult for me at first, but it was a great but being able to be in an uncomfortable situation like that, and to then have these great long talks of that mix of, "Okay, so who are you? Also, this is who I am because these have been my experiences, and here's what I think about them." And you start to deepen your understanding of each other. And when Adam had first when we started really dating after kind of talking and getting to know each other for a couple months, the one sentence he said to me was, "We can keep doing this. We can keep pretending we're just getting to know each other indefinitely, but I need you to know I know enough."
Mm,
And for someone like me who came into the relationship, I was pretty fractured in early adulthood.
mm,
I didn't really understand who I was. Who I was told I was not who I wound up being. Coming from a period of time where I was really scripted before I was really formed was really hard for me. And so I came in with a script ready. And that's another quality Adam has. He's a highly discerning person. And
mm,
so I remember him not taking that script very seriously because it was just very evident that it was a bit illegitimate from the beginning. It didn't quite add up with what he was seeing. And I remember him saying something close to, "Okay, if any parts of the script are true, I'm sure we'll find out. I know enough about what I've seen and experienced of you, and I would like to build something together." And being taken so seriously for who I was before I could even articulate who I was. And as a writer, that's really hard for me. I think articulating something is how I just organize my brain. I have a constant internal dialogue running at all times.
totally.
But I had stopped vetting if that dialogue was truly legitimate, if that was really my character, if that was just kind of something that I was thrusting upon myself and I was allowing to be thrusted upon me. And there's a bit of both going on there. And I always say my marriage made me more myself than I've ever been, which is such a gift. And I think then you become a parent and you become this very legitimate version of yourself as well. And that can be great in some ways. It can also show you exactly what needs to be shaved off in
Totally.
other
Yeah.
areas. And I think that's when I knew that this relationship could handle sanctification in all of its little ways and even some major ways. That was a massive indicator for me that this was going to be a relationship that I was going to continue to grow through. And so was he.
Mm,
And so was our family. Our family is gonna be something that was gonna be welcome to ongoing growth and change as long as we were aiming all at the same thing. So, about Jordan, it sounds like that first coffee, which thank God seems less severe than boot camp. I'm really glad that we segued a little bit there. Did you know during that talk, this is someone who's serious? Or did it take a little bit of just giving him some grace?
I knew that he meant it that very first time. he brought up things that he remembered about me from the very first time we met in high school that
Mhm.
he remembered, and he was the only one who wanted to remember those things, with such intentionality, but I was very scared still, and, so it did t I was kind of like a bit of a porcupine about it at the
Sure.
beginning. I was just like, "Stay away." Like, I don't know. I don't wanna get hurt again, you
Mm.
know? This was a huge thing at the time of my life, is that my parents had separated, and I was evaluating and reflecting on marriage in general.
Mhm.
It wasn't like a divorce that happened to a 4-year-old or to an
Right.
8-year-old. I was 18, like, I lived my whole childhood with this, and then now it's broken, and so, him coming back, the last thing I wanted was to be left. I don't know that I've ever actually said it out loud like that, but that's the truth.
Right.
I was fearful of being hurt again, but there was a very particular situation that happened. And it's funny because I'm saying I was a porcupine for the first, around September is when we got back in contact. That whole time, he kept trying to talk to me, and I'd be like, I don't know. I love you, but I don't know. I don't want to get hurt. He had a family wedding. I said, hey, I think I just need, like, you're going away for the weekend, like, just don't talk to me. I don't wanna hear from you. I wanna be able to take some time to pray and to just be by myself, and I was putting out porcupine vibes, but I was also kinda, like, Jesus juking probably a little bit in there too, and he was like, "Okay." So he left, and I haven't heard from him, and I'm glad because I asked him not to talk to me. But, I'm also, like, that whole weekend thinking, like, "How's the wedding?" Like, "I wonder how it's going," all that. So, A&M has a football game, but it's an away game, and we're big football people. A&M's a big football school, but
Mhm.
we're big football people too. I grew up loving football, watching it with my dad every weekend. Anyway, all that to be said, I was watching the football game with some friends, and then it ended, and we won, and it was hype level 10. It was a very
No.
fun win, and all of a sudden, it's probably 11:30, 12, maybe 12:30. I can't believe at one point in my life I was a night owl, but it was that late, and I'm like, "That's weird." Like, and then it's a house full of girls. We're like, "Is it a killer? Is it is it our time?"
Our
But
minds do go straight to murder.
they always do.
Yeah, like last night, my 4-year-old accidentally set off the medical alarm, and I went full mafioso. I
Yeah,
didn't even ask questions.
no.
I grabbed do you know what I grabbed? I grabbed the pencil sharpener cord and wrapped it around my hands like I was gonna pull a
You're
Godfather
gonna
1. And then my husband looks at me, like the person with the actual biceps in the family,
Yeah,
looks at me, he's like, "What's the plan?"
yeah, yeah.
Like,
You're like, "I've got the plan right
that's
here."
probably
Okay?
okay, you take this one. Anyway,
No.
yes.
So, the knock on the door, I'm thinking to myself, "I need to get something," probably grab, like, a candle or, like,
Right.
some kind of, like, girly thing at the time that was at our
Sure.
house. But at the door is Jordan, and I'm like, first instinct, me, as a first child, strong-willed, probably a little too much sometimes female, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Hey, I just brought you a Dr. Pepper and some flowers from the wedding." He, like, had gotten flowers from the wedding. He got this whole pump up speech the night before, like, told all the groomsmen, express his love for me. They were like, "You got this, dude. You gotta just like, she's your girl. You got," like, it was this
Mhm.
whole, like, thing. His grandma gave him the flowers from the wedding with the mason jar
Oh my
and was like,
gosh.
"Go get your girl." And his mom and his aunts are all sending him off, and he drove all the way back 2.5 hours after the wedding, came all the way back to give me my favorite drink at the time, a Dr. Pepper and flowers, and tell me how much he cared about me and just wanted me to know that he respected the time. What did he said, "I respect that you want this time to yourself, but I just want you to know that I wanna be with you and I love you." And I said, "You're not supposed to be talking to me right now. Shut the door."
After a Dr. Pepper?
After a Dr. Pepper and
And
hydrangeas
grandma
in a
flowers?
mason jar.
Baily, have mercy.
And that was so rude, and I've apologized, but that was the moment that I knew he would fight for me no matter what it took. And no matter my stubbornness, no matter my attitude, whatever it
Yep.
might be, he was willing to fight for me. And of course, the next morning, I immediately call him. I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, this is the best thing you could have ever done. Sometimes I get too caught up in the semantics. Like I said, don't talk to me all weekend, but like, whatever, you just did this huge thing for me.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think just knowing that someone is like literally always going to be in your corner and always going to fight for you, even when you're not wanting to be fought for, even, you know what I mean? Was huge because again, with the divorce piece
Yep.
kind of woven in there and that like sense of a marriage can be broken. Well, no, it can't because I'm always going to fight for you. And our marriage is built on a strong, firm foundation of Jesus, and I will do whatever it takes. And yeah, that was kind of the point where I realized I'll go to the ends of the earth for him, and he will for me too.
Sometimes we need to pressure test those things given our
Yep.
experiences. We come into marriages if babies are not born into this world with a blank slate.
Yeah.
So a lot of their genes are awakened. They're ready for use. They're ready to receive experiences and exercise temperament. And I think, so very obviously the major life experiences we go through, we have our own wiring for how we respond to those things. And there's a magic in the transformative nature of a marital relationship that can rewire some of those
Totally.
experiences. And I always think that's very interesting because they talk about the rewiring of a woman's brain and body when she becomes a mother. And I think a version of that happens when we are evaluating marriage and we're preparing ourselves for it. And then when we experience marriage, they even say some spouses start to almost look similar over the
Yeah.
decades that they live together, right? So
Yeah.
there's very evidently a physiological, but very much a psychological and a spiritual unification that happens probably in more subtle ways than we sometimes realize. And so pressure testing the individual experiences we bring into the relationship against this other person's capacity to handle them is our way of being able to say, there are going to be times where I need you to be disagreeable enough to outstubborn me, to be a bit
Totally.
obstinate about the things that are worth fighting for.
Yeah.
And your experience on in college is not very common anymore. So I was thinking about some of our conversations that we've had working
Mhm.
together and planning rebranding motherhood and looking into we constantly for our listeners we constantly have several group chats going on Instagram or text message and they go all day long admittedly and well into the evening most days, and we
If
just
I'm
don't
awake
really
to respond
stop.
to them.
Yeah, we don't really stop talking about this stuff. We're a little bit obsessed. So, but one of the things that we talked about and that I was preparing as I was looking at actually taking this conversation on air was a couple articles that I saw when I do my morning news briefing. And one was from Cosmopolitan. So this is their dating trend of the summer. Listen to this. It's
Mm.
described as wildflowering. How is that for marketing?
Ooh. Wildflowering.
Wildflowering,
Who wouldn't
right?
wanna be a wildflower?
Wouldn't wanna be a wildflower. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is a little too chaotic for me. Wildflowering, it's relaxed, open-ended, label-free dating. So, you've mentioned that the way you conceptualized dating in high school was not efficient.
Sure.
And it was just muddled with
Mm.
competing priorities and things weighing things in a way they really shouldn't have been. So, I'm wondering your take on wildflowering, say, on in college, right? At a
Mm.
conceivable age to become engaged and married, probably in
Yeah.
its earliest. So what do you think about this whole scene? Do you think that it is necessary for some people? Do you think you and Jordan were just an anomaly that you could know that early? Would
Mm.
you ever prescribe some sort of relaxed, open-ended, label-free dating situation for anyone who might not be a Christian? They might not be sure even what they believe in, what their politics are, what they if they even wanna be a parent, anything like that. Do you think there's anything discoverable in that type of dating setup that's worth your time?
Well, I don't think everyone's gonna meet the love of their life and immediately know and get married a year later or wait 3 years to rekindle the love, or whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with dating someone and realizing you don't want to marry them and moving on. Now, relaxed, label free dating, number one, sounds a little contradictory to me because if it's label free, how can you really be relaxed about it? I feel like you'd always be like, I think I've talked to enough women in my life to know that most are wondering what's the label. It just creates a lot of questions. It creates a lot of insecurity. It creates a lot of distrust in the other
Mhm.
person and yourself. So I would say no to wildflowering, yes to something less than courtship right
Mhm.
away. Is
There's nothing wrong with a nice formal date
Yeah. You don't have to
and a
go on one date
conversation.
with someone
Yeah.
knowing you're going to marry them. You
Right.
can go, you can get to know someone because, the other thing that's tough is we lived in a different time when you met people more organically than I think it happens now. Even at work, half the time you're working remotely. So if you're meeting your coworkers, you're meeting them over webcams. A lot of classes are online. So you can't necessarily just get to know a person right next to you, like getting, just like, hey, what's going on? You got
Mhm.
to really be in it. And so that's a little confusing too. I always tell people that are dating now, like, I do not envy you at all because I don't know how I would navigate that. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
just,
how do you develop any game? When
I don't
I mean
know. Just
respectfully,
cute,
how
cute
do
little,
you develop a finesse when you're not just like standing, especially when schools went online, a lot of colleges went online during COVID. How do you do that? How
I
do you
know.
learn how to awkwardly walk up to somebody? How do you learn how to stand
Right.
there and pretend you didn't see them accidentally trip on their way over to you because you're like
Right.
trying to show them a little bit of grace?
How do you
How do
play
you do
hard
it?
to get talking to your friend group
Right.
and try to just, like, every once in a while do, like, the side eye just to see what's
Exactly.
going on over there?
It's a rite of passage to make your friends pretend to be laughing at something really funny you just
Totally,
said.
totally,
Mhm.
exactly, and so, yeah, it sometimes takes, I'm sure, a couple dates. I don't think that it's as easy as the first person you meet, you're just gonna fall in love with, but, wildflowering's gonna be a no for me.
I say accept the date, accept a couple dates, and then move the conversation along. I think sometimes the advice out there gets a little too extreme the other way of you need
Yeah,
to be talking about marriage and making some sort of courtship arrangement on the first date. I just don't think that's realistic, especially in this new dating culture where a lot of kids have had social media as actually a primary form of communication since they were very young.
right.
So I don't think that that's realistic. I do think that full on whatever this wildflowering is it's going to create distrust, insecurity, feeling insignificant. Those are not things that are going to make a woman keep pushing, keep walking forward in the relationship and feel like she could become a mother, become a wife. And, we know that women, they face a much higher consequence to a sexual relationship by carrying and bearing life in their children. Listening to Tough Love with Abigail Schreier in the Free Press today, and she had received a response from someone who wasn't sure if she wanted to have children. And she was in this perpetual dating cycle with her long term boyfriend. She figured she just must naturally not want to have children. And I loved the line of thought that Abigail confronted her with, which was, well, I'm not sure you would think about having children in favorable terms because the relationship has not gone to a very stable place. So,
Mm,
how about you table that? Do I want to have kids? Do I not? And see if this relationship is going to lead towards engagement, towards marriage.
right,
And then let's evaluate how you feel about kids. And I
totally.
think that's such a wonderful prescription because you
Very
have your
wise.
marriage, ideally before the rest of your family comes into the picture, and you will ideally have your marriage after the children leave and they cleave to their own spouses and they start their own
Mhm,
families. It's down to the two of you.
right.
Very ideally speaking. And so when I look at some of what the culture prescribes, I just don't know if that's feasible to ever lead, especially women who, when they're postpartum, when they're pregnant, they need high levels of security and comfort.
You do?
Right. You don't look the same. You don't feel the same. You don't even think the same.
No.
Especially, I remember that first postpartum period when our son Jack was born, and it was a very traumatic birth.
Mm,
It was a manually removed placenta. It was done permanently injured from the event, and it took a lot out of me, and I just didn't understand what had happened to me at the time. And
mm,
so I remember in those first couple weeks postpartum, having never gone through those emotional swings or shifts ever, I remember saying to my husband, he had said something like admittedly completely innocuous. I mean, just like it was probably the most vanilla statement in the world, like, "What do you want for dinner?" And I think I was near tears, and I remember saying to him, I'm gonna speak very matter of factly right now. I wanna be offended by by what you're saying. I feel the only way I could describe it was I feel like I'm in a brush at night, and I feel like your hand is leading me through the thick brush, but you have night vision and I do not. I remember saying, I actually really can't see very clearly right now." And that was highly intimidating. So I need you to lead me through pretty
mm,
much everything you're saying. And I know that sounds like an odd request, but I'm gonna go to be very emotional or very offended by almost everything right now. And to be met with such tenderness
mm,
and met with such patience and explanation and just understanding, even though you know this person can't possibly walk in your shoes in that moment, they trust
mm,
you enough to just give you whatever you're asking for, not because they understand it, but because it's you who's asking. I think that's one of the most powerful parts of marriage, and so I don't think that very often what is prescribed in dating culture makes a woman be able to anticipate her deepest needs, and so sometimes I think that women avoid them, that they
totally.
avoid wanting those things, and it would
Yeah,
be natural to avoid wanting those things if what you are receiving as prescriptive in dating culture is just ultimately not gonna lead there. I would
right,
avoid it.
right.
That's not a sure bet for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jordan was really your first real boyfriend.
Mm,
You never needed a lot of comparison between him and other people. From the time you guys broke up to the time you got together, what were this comparative analysis you needed to know that this was gonna be legitimate and it was gonna
yeah.
lead towards marriage that second time?
I read a lot of Bible during that time. So I read about a lot of biblical men, men that were really strong in their faith, knew what they believed, why they believed it, and that's what I wanted. Seeing Jordan whenever we got back together and how much he had grown and how much he had dove into his faith and how much he had studied his theology and was just so sure of what he believed was really, of course, the deciding factor for me because you see that and you know that above all else, this man has the word of God written all over his heart and he is going to lead you with that sound advice and truth throughout your life. He'll parent your kids with that truth in mind and that was huge for me. I during that time, of course, listened to like all of these different amazing women and got to know a couple different mentors and seeing their husbands was a real example too. And so I think between those two, that's really what secured it for me. And that's all that I need is a man who knows the Lord and loves the Lord with all his heart and with all his mind and with all his strength and is going to love and serve me in the same way, glorifying God with all that he does and pointing me to that. Like that's all I need.
While you're delving into the word, you're delving into scripture, you're learning about everything that makes up the fruits of the spirit.
Right.
So we're looking at love, peace,
Mhm.
faithfulness, goodness, gentleness, patience, self control, kindness, these really essential characteristics. And I know I hit on the culture so much, but women are very often told to sleep around as a comparative analysis or to
Totally.
very seriously date around, not accept dates. I'm talking very serious relationships that mimic marriage. And it seems like this entire time, really, the comparative analysis that you needed, the comparative analysis that I needed was really comparing these men to Christ.
Yeah.
Can they be like him?
Yeah.
And can they put that as the highest aim? And we talk about being disagreeable enough not to be swayed or pressured into holding any other standard other than the cross that's set before them, the race that's set before them. They know
Absolutely.
where they kneel, you know where
Yeah,
your place is going to be. You're gonna be standing right beside him because if you are just as committed to that race and you are just as committed to kneeling before that cross, you are going to fit together because that is the yoke you are going to
that is
choose
the
to
yoke.
live under. And it's
Yep.
it's these 2 people who have made this choice together, and we had sort of we had our own denominational journey, I'll say, in our family that has actually very much enlivened our co-study together. I don't think I would have fared well if I tried to compare Adam to anything else other than the most essential characteristics, the most essential components, and the most essential priorities that we would both need in life. And then to continue to undergo sanctification myself, to pursue those things as well that I knew he was also looking for.
Mm,
And when you can do that, then the children start to see the
mm,
consistency in that. And they don't see mom and dad as on opposite teams, that
right.
they enjoy the distinct opinions, the distinct input, but they ultimately know they're going to receive a united answer. Try as they might.
Try as they
Again, try
might.
as they might. They are
Man, tell me.
diligent.
My daughter will come she's 5 and they're
Mhm,
5 and 3. It's really not even the 5-year-old, it's the 3-year-old at this point,
mhm.
but, "Mom, can I have a popsicle?"
It's always the popsicles.
"No, not right now, just
Mhm.
not right now." I literally go in the other room and hear, "Dad, can I have a popsicle?"
Always.
"Hey, I just heard what your mom
Mhm.
answered in the other room, and we're on the same team,
Yeah.
and whatever she says, I'm on the same team as her, and I'm gonna say the same, and
Right.
vice versa. So don't try this on me, you little 3-year-old. You're not getting a popsicle right now."
They will
But it's worth it because we're in the fight, and we're gonna fight until there is no more fight.
and it is a fight. And I'm okay with that language. I don't
Yeah.
find that to be intimidating
No.
because I think when you come up for air after even a disagreement with each other, there is for me, there's always this relief.
Yeah.
There's always like, we got somewhere,
Yeah.
right? We got somewhere because you're aiming in the same direction. And I think having a husband who does what he says he's going to do, even if the details change, if the aim is consistent, there have been days we've gone to bed with our successes. There have been days we've gone to bed with our failures. We are always going to bed together.
Mm.
My favorite parts of Peter Pan is Mr. and Mrs. Darling talking about the drawer of dreams, and
Mm.
Mrs. Darling describes it as having these dreams with Mr. Darling, and they when they had children, they knew they had to put some of those dreams in a drawer, and they knew that some of them would never materialize in their lives. And she says, "But every once in a while, your father and I, when you guys are in bed at night, we will go and we will open the drawer." Because sometimes we just have to look at them and we have to allow ourselves to maybe miss them, right?
Mm.
And and some of them we got to take out and we got to keep out. And we got to live those dreams and some we have to put away. And I think when the two of you decide on those together, when there's grace, there's forgiveness, or there's understanding of what needs to stay in the drawer, and there's excitement when you get to pull something out and you get to sacrifice for each other, for each other's goals, for the whole family, there's such a beauty in that because love, when it is sacrificial, it's not needlessly arduous. It's not just unending drudgery. It's actually life
Mm.
in this incredibly exclusionary lane, which
Mm.
sounds awful, right? To say, when I get married to you, when we have our family, I'm going to exclude so many things. But it's written in our vows. I'm going to forsake all others. I'm
Yeah.
going to cleave to you. I am going to form this family. We are going to have children, and we are going to be unapologetically judgmental about what we don't want to see in this family and what does not align with our deepest values. And we are going to be okay
Absolutely.
with that. And we're to
Mm.
carry that out. And in that way, the dreams you get to keep out are hard fought for and they are hard won. And I think we're kind of looking ahead to Father's Day, and that's really what prompted this conversation is we wanted to talk about the men that would become the fathers of our children and
Yeah.
what was that origin story like? What ultimately led to some guy you knew in 7th grade becoming father of your children through loss, through cross-country moves, through all of the things you guys have been through. How did that materialize in these very real terms? And I think it's a beautiful story. Every single family has their origin story, the thing that the family is built on.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you so much for talking to me. For Father's Day, this is a great starting point for
yeah,
some of our listeners, especially who are discerning marriage, discerning children, and wondering what this day in June will look like for them in the future. So Bailey, thank you
absolutely.
so much for your time. I appreciate it. On Rebranding Motherhood, we talk about the lie that motherhood is a trap and that if you are in a situation where you need support, then no one will be there to help you or to be a steady voice for you. I want to talk to you about our Project Loveline that decimates that lie and helps women get real help in real time. We connect women with resources, or if we can't find one, we become the resource. So if you, someone you know, needs to access our hotline, you can visit us at loveline.com. And if you want to volunteer, if you want to be that steady voice in someone's life, we would love to talk to you about your heart for helping mothers. Thank you.